here with Ink on 3, and thank you for joining me. I am so excited to be here on Stamp Nation, and we're gonna have a crafty party. Why? Well, who doesn't like a crafty party? But Catherine has come out with the new Party Collection inks. They're beautiful, vibrant colors. We're gonna take those and join them with the Ink on 3 Fade Out ink, and we're gonna create a beautiful magical card using the Magical Unicorn stamp set. So let's get started. I have all our supplies laid out so I can show you what we're going to use to make this card. And I'll also have all of the items in the description of the blog post as well. And you can see I've got all the beautiful new inks from the Party Collection. They are simply gorgeous. The colors are really vibrant and they really pair beautifully with the Fade Out No Line Coloring Detail ink. So let's get started on stamping it first with the Fade Out No Line Coloring Detail ink. I'm going to stamp it a couple times here. You don't have to do that. I'm doing it because the lights are so bright when I'm filming that I want to make sure you can see it really well on camera. So I just put on my unicorn, Magical Unicorn stamp from Ink on 3. I'm inking it up, and then I'm going to use my Misty positioning tool to stamp it on the watercolor paper that I'm using, and I'm using a Canson. You can see how light and pretty that ink is, and it's going to become the color that we put on top. So you can take the Catherine Pooler Party Collection inks and watercolor with them, which is what we're doing here. And as you can see, what I'm going to do first is I am going to map out all the colors that I want to do. I'm basically tracing my lines with the colors that I want to paint each item. And for me, I find this to be super helpful. That way I don't forget what I want to color pink or what I want to color yellow or green or purple. It just maps it out for me and makes it really easy. And with no line coloring, some people sometimes get confused about, no line coloring. Well, there shouldn't be a line, but if you have no line, then it's just going to be a blurred image. So even though it's called no line coloring, what that really means is it's not going to have the standard black stamping line that you have in regular stamping. No line coloring creates the look that you've painted this and drawn it all by yourself. It's a really, really fun process, and with the Fade Out ink, it makes it so easy. And as you can see here, I'm actually just coloring in the yellow, and the lines in those flowers are becoming the color of the yellow, and I'm not losing the detail. So it makes no line coloring super, super easy. And the Catherine Pooler inks, along with it, they grab it nicely. They make the process super easy. So I'm going to put on a little music while I finish just outlining these in all the colors that I want to map out for this card. So sit back, enjoy, and I'll be back in just a minute. Now that we have everything mapped out in the colors that we want, we can start filling it in without getting lost. Especially because this is maybe a more complicated piece with a lot of different flowers, and I wanted to have a lot of different colors. So for that reason, mapping it out makes it a lot easier as well. And I'm just dipping directly into the ink. I'm using an ink off cloth to blot off my water brush pen in between each color that I want to get lighter and lighter. So you'll see I'll start out with the darker color, then I'll pull that color up a little bit at a time. Then once I've pulled it up a little, I'm going to go to the cloth, wipe off a little, and pull more up. And each time I do that, my color will get lighter and lighter as it goes up the petals. And that's going to give you that really pretty shading without working very hard. And you'll see I'm using a water brush pen. Normally I never used a water brush pen because I always had a hard time finding one that had good control or a nice firm tip, but we finally found one, and I'm using the Ink on 3 fine tip water brush pen. It has like a really firm tip, good water control, and I think it really works great. But you can use a regular water brush for this process as well. And what you'll notice as I'm going along, the details are staying, and the ink, the fade out ink, is grabbing the colors as I put them on without losing the details. And we talked about that a little earlier. It just makes it so much easier because you do want those lines. Then I go in and I notice, I'm like, oh my gosh, I put a little too much dark at the base of this petal, and the paper really grabbed it. And that's something with the paper sometimes, but don't worry if that happens, because we do want a dark color at the bases or the nooks and crannies of our flower in the end anyway. So if that happens, let that section dry, move on to the next, and you can come back later and add your layers on top, and that's just going to blend it out really easily. So you can sit back and watch. I'm going to continue filling in, and then I'll be back to talk to you a little bit more about exactly what I'm doing. But again, even in these little nooks and crannies, you can see the ink is just grabbing those colors and making this process quick and easy for me. So I'm going to put a little music on, and then I'll be right back to give you some more tips and tricks. So you notice for the main, they're larger sections. So for the larger sections, I do start with a wet base. On the smaller sections, I'll usually work with dry paper and then add my colors and blend them with the water, but working with dry. For the main, you'll notice that I did wet the paper first and then blended my colors out. It just gives a softer look and makes it a little easier to blend it out in the larger sections. Now I'm going to go back and deepen the petals of the flowers, and I added a little bit more of the pink, but then I really wanted some more depth, so I grabbed the Samba, and it works really beautiful over the pinks for the flowers. It gives that really nice shadow. It gives a really nice depth. So what I love about Catherine's inks is they all blend together really well. And you can tell they've been really thought out as to what colors to have so that they all go together and blend beautifully. And it gives me a great shadow in all the nooks and crannies of the flowers. So wet on wet for large sections is what I like to do, and then dry and with a wet brush on the smaller sections. And then I even take some of that Samba and I mix it into the Grape Crush and all that jazz, because it really gives it a nice contrast. It adds a little more flair, and it just kind of pulls everything together. I then add it into the yellow flowers to give them a little bit more depth and show all the details of the flower. And here's where you'll really see the Ink on 3 Fade Out No Line Coloring ink do its job for you. I take the Samba and I just run my brush over some of the areas, and it pulls all that detail out, but leaving you that beautiful yellow and the Samba mixture together, and now you can see all the variations in the petals. Isn't that so cool? So it makes no line coloring so much easier, because I know a lot of people are afraid of it because it's more difficult, but that's the beauty of this ink. It's like no other out there. You're not going to find it anywhere else. It's going to make no line coloring so much more fun. Of course, you do have to practice just like anything else to get the hang of it, but you will get good at it in no time. And just take your time, outline the petals, then add in your shading. And you can see as I go along and I keep painting, the lines kind of start disappearing. They looked dark at first, and now as I add the depth of colors, the deeper tones, those lines start to disappear, and then it looks like you have drawn this, you've colored this, it's your own piece of art. The funny thing you'll notice is I just put my finger and I left this in here, and I'm kind of glad it happened. I got a big blue ink splot right on the nose of my magical unicorn, and I got some in those yellow flowers too. But don't worry if that happens. There's a fix. You can see I take clean water and I dab it on I clean my brush, then I take a paper towel and just dab it, almost like if you spilt wine on the carpeting. You're not going to rub, you're just going to dab and dab and dab. And then once I get it light enough, I'm going to let that section dry and go to my next areas, because I have got a fix that I will show you, because you can see I couldn't get all of that blue out of the nose. And if you're like me, I'm a little messy and I always wind up sticking my fingers in my ink and then touching my paper. We have a fix for this, and you'll see when it's all done, you're not even going to see that blue splotch. So then I take some of the pink again and some of the Samba. So I start with the light pink and I just kind of give it an outlined edge and then blend it out, keeping a white section in the middle of its face. So it's going to give it a really pretty glow. I'm going to grab some of the Samba for my darker color and blend that out, and it's just going to give it so much dimension. It's going to be great. You're going to love it in the end when you do this. And you start with your light and then gradually work to your dark, because with watercoloring or basically anything, it's easy to go darker. It's really difficult to go from a dark color back to a light color. It's almost impossible. So always start light and work your way darker, darker, darker. Then I'm going to go in and work on the horn a little bit. I'm just going to put a little of the blue in the base of each crease or crevice of the horn so that it gives it a little bit of a shadow, and it's coming along nicely. You'll also notice that I have been cleaning my brush off on the Ink on 3 Ink Off cloth. I find it to be really easy to use. You can use it to clean your stamps. You can use it for watercoloring. I usually have one for watercoloring and one for my stamps. It just makes things a little easier. You notice I decided to dry my paper, and I dried the front and the back, and the reason I do that is so that it doesn't cause as much warping on the paper. I wanted to dry it because now I'm going to add a little bit of colored pencil in the nooks and crannies. You don't have to do this step, but I really wanted to because I really, really want to have that deep etched color. I really want these colors to pop, And so I just grabbed some colors that were very similar to the inks, maybe a little bit darker, and I'm going in to all the little nooks and crannies. I'm going around some of the lines here and there. You will be surprised at how much adding just this little bit of pencil to your painting will add. It just really makes it pop. So it's really worth doing, adding little shadows here and there. And then what I will do is take a blending pen, one that will remove the wax, or you can either use a Gamasol, works really great as well, and I'll also have those things linked in the description. And just go into all the little nooks and crannies, just a little bit here and there. And I'm going to show you when I'm done blending it, but I did actually lose a little bit of footage on the blending, but basically you're just going to go over those lines and blend them out. So I'm going to let you watch a little bit of the process, and I'll be right back. So once I'm done doing all of that, and you can see I've already blended it out here, but we lost that footage of me blending it out. I also removed that big blotch on the nose using just a white gel pen, and you can see now that it's completely gone. You can't even see my big blue fingerprint in the middle of its nose anymore. But you just blend it out, all the lines, and you can see now it's really soft and pretty, but it's got that depth to it. Next, I'm going to just take the coordinating dies to the Magical Unicorn stamp set and cut out my unicorn. And look how pretty it looks. Oh my gosh, I just love it. It's so soft and pretty. Now I'm going to put a little of the liquid pixie dust onto the unicorn because I really want it to sparkle. I'm going to take a medium-sized water brush, add some of the liquid pixie dust to it, and paint it on. And I also use just a black permanent pen or marker to outline its eye. But look how fun it is to add this sparkle with the liquid pixie dust in my water brush pen. You can use it with a water brush pen or just a regular paintbrush. The beauty of the liquid pixie dust is you can have as much sparkle or as little as you want. It gives complete control. So next we're going to move on to our sentiment. I'm going to use Hugs, Kisses, and Unicorn Wishes. I just think that's going to be so cute on the front of this card. And I'm using some of the Juicy Embossing ink by Ink on 3 along with the chrome embossing powder. It's really ultra fine, and the juicy ink goes along with it really well. It's super juicy, just like the name, but you can use any embossing powders or ink that you like. So I just put it on. I'm always going to put my powder back in before I put it all over my desk. And then I'm just going to heat it up and we're good to go. And I'm going to cut I'm going to make that into a little flag. So I'm just going to cut a slit on each side and then cut from the corners so that I have a little flagged end on each one, and you'll see that in a little bit. So for the inside of my card, since we are celebrating the party collection, we're going to use the Happy Birthday stamp on the inside. How fun is this? Hugs, Kisses, Unicorn Wishes. And then on the inside we put Happy Birthday. How cute. Oh, Hugs, Kisses, Unicorn Wishes, and then Happy Birthday on the inside. So fun. So it totally goes with this party collection. Who doesn't love a unicorn on their birthday? So then we're going to move on to the actual assembly. I'm just going to use a bunch of foam tape so that we don't get any warping or wobbling on the front of the card. Oh my gosh, and I'm just noticing all that sparkle on that unicorn in the shot. You can really see now that it's dried and the lighting is just showing it. It's so sparkly. I just think that looks so magical. So I added just a little washi tape on the card base. The card base I cut a little smaller than an A2 size card, which is the card I used is a silver A2 size pre-made card. I add our Hugs, Kisses, and Unicorn Wishes flag banner. Then I'm going to add a bunch of foam tape to our unicorn so it also is really sturdy. So if we pop it in the mail, it's going to look just as good as when we made it when they open it up. So I'm just going to add that, pull off the tape, and pop it on the front of the card. And I really hope you're inspired by this to create something really fun, whimsical, and magical. And try your hand at the no line coloring using the Catherine Pooler inks along with the Ink on 3 fade out. I think you will be so excited, and your friends will be really impressed too. So if you do make something, please make sure and share it and tell everybody what you use. So thanks for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you next time.